Nush Entertainment attended the Excel Centre in London to film the Global Summit event aiming to end sexual violence in conflict, hosted by Angelina Jolie, Special Envoy for the UN High Commissioner for Refugees, as well as world designer Stella McCartney.
How are you today?
I'm very well, thank you.
What would you say about it? What do you think it's important to be here?
I mean, for me, it's incredible that they have this marketplace and they have the Fringe that can really encourage the general public to come and to get information and to support this incredible summit. You know, I think it's the first of its kind, and I think it will lead to great change, hopefully.
Would you encourage designers or emerging designers to create projects or charities or events that promote this kind of issue?
Yeah, I mean, for me personally, it's ideal if you can marry with these kind of NGOs and you can create beautiful products that are really, you know, giving back to communities and enabling people to enrich their lives and better themselves. For me, it's the ideal thing.
Combining the two things.
Yeah, absolutely.
Abuse can be physical, sexual, emotional, economic, psychological, or some combination thereof. It can happen to anyone of any gender, religion, profession, or socio-economic background.
Thank you.
Good to meet an Italian.
Thank you very much. I just want to ask a question. As a member of the House of Lords, what are the dynamics, legal-wise, that women are facing when they come to court to report gender-based violence, and if it's true that there is a difference in treatment or not, in that sense?
Well, I mean, I would imagine that even globally, I could claim that access to justice for women is often more difficult. Breaking down the barriers, being prepared to stand up and say that abuses, have taken place is very, very difficult for women, because the shame and so on is something that women have to contend with. And that's, you know, when I've met many women and talked to women who've endured some of the terrible attacks that we've been talking about in the meeting today. And it's also the case, of course, that men have much more bravado, confidence about these things maybe as well, and for women, they don't always want to talk to men about what's been happening to them. So you need to have a very sensitive approach in order to make sure that women are prepared to speak openly and honestly about the concerns that they have.
This event has been created to urge countries to strengthen their domestic laws, so that those responsible for sexual violence in conflict can be reliably prosecuted both in and outside the countries where they committed their appalling crimes. It aimed to be the moment that the world wakes up and says, sexual violence is not an inevitable part of war.
There is nothing inevitable about it. It is a weapon of war aimed at civilians. It has nothing to do with sex, everything to do with power. It is done to torture and humiliate innocent people, and often very young children.
Hi, my name's Heather Saunders. I'm the Policy and Advocacy Officer at Plan UK in London. Plan is a global children's charity. Our Because I'm a Girl campaign is focused on girls' rights to education, protection from violence, and to participate in the decisions that affect their lives. Our event at the summit was an emergency classroom. We set up a tent which showed services we provide in conflict situations. We often provide child-friendly spaces, which we see are really key to girls and boys in situations of conflict and emergency, to provide them a safe space to learn, to carry on their education, and to protect them from sexual violence and from other associated risks in conflict and emergencies. So Plan works in over 50 countries around the world, and we are working on projects that really make a direct change to children's lives. One example of this is our work in Bangladesh, where we've worked with youth groups to help end child marriage. So we've taught children about their rights, we've helped to empower them with the skills and the knowledge they need, working with their communities, with faith leaders, with their teachers, and we've helped young people to go out and challenge the practice of child marriage. We've helped them to end child marriages by approaching adults who are trying to force their children to marry, and to speak to them about the dangers of child marriage and why it's so important that girls and boys continue their education and stay in school. We've seen this having a real impact in Bangladesh, with whole districts declaring that they're ending child marriage and that they are not going to force their children to marry young. So we've really been impressed by the scale and the scope and the success of this work, and we are planning to continue working in Bangladesh and across the world to end child marriage and other harmful practices against girls next year and beyond.
Hi, I'm Layla Azrari. I'm Public Affairs Officer at the Royal Commonwealth Society branch based here in London. We are an organisation that works within the Commonwealth to uphold the values of the Commonwealth as outlined in the Commonwealth Charter.
Leila, can I call you Leila personally? Okay. Why is this issue of child marriage close to your heart personally? Because obviously, you know, you choose to work within this organization.
My personal story, I'm half Iranian, child marriage. Close to my heart. Stopping this issue is close to my heart because it really prevents a girl from having any opportunities. It takes away her ability to make decisions about her own future. It takes those decisions out of her hands, and it really prevents girls from being able to take up opportunities that can give them more options in the future. It leads to a cycle of poverty, really, where girls are prevented from being able to get an education and enter into an adult relationship before they're ready to cope with the sort of mental and physical
They kind of have to grow up very fast.
Exactly, yes, too fast.
So it affects them mentally a lot, you know, not just physically. It's a terrible thing to go through.
Yes, and actually we see, it's interesting that you say this affects them mentally, because we see the sort of attitude changes in girls who marry early are more likely to think that it is okay for their husband to beat them for sort of everyday problems like burning the dinner or other reasons. So really it shows that it has a limiting effect on your sort of ability on your own self-esteem, really. I mean, it takes that away from a girl.
Statistically, women are much more likely than men to be victimised. Women aged 20 to 24 are at the greatest risk of experiencing non-fatal intimate partner violence. They also experience the highest rates of rape and sexual assault.
Hi, my name is Sausan Salim. I'm the director of Kurdish and Middle East Women Organization to support women from Kurdistan, Middle East, Iran, Iraq, Turkey, who've been a victim of domestic violence or honor killing or forced marriage or female genital mutilation. And they saying this honor killing not acceptable, this is not acceptable, this is not. But when it comes to practice, although they created a new law on against domestic violence, or let's say family law, but when it comes to practice, it's never been used. You know, this is the problem, and the perpetrator is free. You know, for example, there is so far 3 cases of honor killing in UK, like Hirshu and Banaz and Subhiya Nader. And that's why our campaign for end honor killing in Kurdistan, this is ongoing. But so far, you know, later on something happened, I'm sure you are aware, you know, when the ISIS started attacking Kurdish area in Syria and Iraq, and they started kidnapping thousands of Yazidi girls and women and using them for like slavery, sex slavery. We campaigned, and again we managed to bring to have a kind of networking with many Kurdish women organization and to raise our voice demanding the right for Yazidi girl who kidnapped by ISIS. Actually, we were there campaigning for justice for Dunya. And Dunya, she was a 15 years old girl. She married twice from age 13 and last time age 15 to a man who were 45 years old, and he was polygamist. He married before and he had a wife and 6 children. She had lots of problems. The family were aware. Her mother called the police to help her daughter, and the police did nothing at that time. And in 23rd of May, the man killed this young girl, which is her name Dunya, and in a very brutal way chopped her. He took out her eyes, he cut her breast, and he tied her to the car and pulled her around in the town. And she was killed in a very, very brutal way, and she was just 15 years old, just a child.
But there's no particular reason why these men do that?
It's just about because of whatever happened, we don't know. But at the end, is they say because of honor, because she brought shame for us. Because the issue around Dunya, they said, because the man was interviewed through on TV, they say what I did. Every single man, if they go through this situation I go through, they should do the same. The TV from government side, which is interviewing people, and they allow the people to say, if this happened to my wife, or if this happened to my sister, I do the same. You know, this is really, it was really shocking. You know, our campaign is not just about justice for Dunya, it's about the human rights, and also about the social media who in a different way influence people to do the same. Our organization is a charity organization, actually, although we do campaigning and lobby, and we want to represent Kurdish women voice, because there's lots of brutality there, and we want people to know about it. And we always manage to make a bridge between here and there, especially in North Iraq, because all the problem mainly is there, and the other part also. But for example, honor killing is very high within Turkish part, and even in Iran. Even by law, there is stoning against adultery in Iran. If they find out a woman, been involved with adultery, there's a punishment which is stoning and to death.
More than 80% of victims of domestic violence are women. About 75% of people who commit domestic violence are male. Sexual and domestic violence is also linked to a range of reproductive health issues, including sexually transmitted infections and HIV, miscarriages, and risky sexual health behavior.
My name is Gona Said, and I am called a project manager in this organization, that is Kurdish and Middle Eastern Women Organization. We support all the campaigns against FGM, like Stop FGM.
Sure. Obviously, as a charity, as an organization, you're facing a lot of challenges, sometimes a lot of threats.
Yeah.
And you have to go through a lot of things and do a lot of sacrifices. Could you please list or share with us some of the challenges that you find?
We do face challenges in 2 ways, basically. One of them is, you kind of mentioned already, that we are dealing with very sensitive issues. Every type and form of honor-based violence, it's also a traditional practice. It's something like, for example, honor killings, female genital mutilation, forced marriages, is something being practiced amongst communities for centuries. So therefore, it's deeply rooted in the traditional attitudes and norms of people, and therefore it's been justified generation by generation. It's been justified and believed that is the right thing to do. So it's a very big challenge to talk against those traditions and norms. It's a big challenge to convince parents and people who believed for years that is the right thing to do, and then to convince them that this is against the law, this is a crime against human rights of your daughters, of your wives, of your, the female members of your family. So that's one of the biggest challenges we always face. Another challenge is, as women, once you get organized in an organization and you want to provide support, because we provide practical support. So for example, if a girl or a woman wants to escape their families because of a violence, because of a threat of honor-based violence, we support those women and those girls to get away from their families, to get away from the harmful environment, which means, yes, we support the women to get away at the end, to get away from their families.
That's a very tough and brave thing to do, because you're
exactly,
by defending these people and standing up for these women, you are basically putting at risk in a way your life.
Absolutely.
Because you are, so I'm really impressed that you do all these sacrifices to standing for people's rights, and so, well, thank you for doing that.
This was Nush Entertainment on sexual violence in conflict. This summit has been the largest international event ever held on the issue of sexual violence in conflict. It welcomed over 100 countries, international organisations from across the world, NGOs, survivors and faith leaders who all showed their commitment to end sexual violence. Please contact us for more information, and let's remember, sexual violence is not an inevitable part of war. We can still support each other to make the world a better place. Thank you for watching.